What's going on, everyone? My name is Joseph Reynolds, and today joining me is a man that you should all know by now, Chris Wade. Obviously, the return of the PFL's $1 million tournament this year, and you've got a big fight coming up against Bubba Jenkins. How are you feeling for that fight, buddy?
What's going on? Thank you for having me on this morning. First of all, and I'm feeling great, honestly. I know it's wild to say this, and some people are like, yeah, okay. But I really feel like I've taken another step up in my fighting at the age I'm at 35. I just think I'm finally starting to think about the sport more and to have a higher IQ about what I need to do in there. So I put a lot of hard work in this off season. Obviously, some of it because of the loss, and I think that's really going to show out there this year.
Yeah, and so far throughout your career, any time that you've been dealt with a loss, you've shown considerable improvement, been able to bounce back. And this time, obviously, the momentum might be down a little bit, but it'll be very quick to pick it back up in the PFL. But when you do have a loss against such an opponent as well, where it was a great rivalry between yourself and Brendan Loughnane, how is the sort of getting back to where you was and starting to build back up to where you were as well?
Yeah, that was a tough one. I've had some other losses before in my life that have hurt. But when you're in $1 million tournament and you really think it's your year and you're feeling everything, it really tests you. It tests you down to like your soul. So I think that although it was like a traumatic and a tough bounce back, I think that in life, that's when you learn the most is from those painful ones. So I'm really expecting improvement. I'm expecting a better version of me in there this season than was in there last season.
Yeah, and as well with each new year that comes with these tournaments, there's always new names added to divisions, and it's always growing. But in terms of sort of looking at the landscape of the division this year and their opponents in there, how are you sort of feeling about some of the potential matchups, and then also the matchup that you have got going into this next fight?
Yeah, there's always some turnover, right? Always some new faces. They want to keep it fresh. But I do still think that our division, in particular at 45, is still the same, like four dudes that have been kind of like running the division the last few years. That's Movleed, Brendan, myself, and Bubba. And I think that everybody else is that's in it is they're tough, but they're knocking. They're trying to like break through, and we have a very consistent wall there since 2021. So the matchup with Bubba, man, listen, I don't take anything away from Bubba, from his accomplishments, from what I think of him as an athlete. I'm ready to go, man. I know this guy can fight. I know he's explosive. And my mind is just right this year. Last year it was focused on too much garbage, too much extra. This year it's just about when we lock the cage. That's it.
Yeah, with you mentioned there in terms of obviously the tournament and the same four guys sort of being at the top, and it's almost, you look at that division, everyone wants to see what's going on, and it's like being in a big sea, and there's lots of sharks in there. But in terms of being able to overcome these competitions, knowing that you faced some of them before, and you pretty much been studying them for a long while, knowing that you could potentially face them, how is it sort of preparing for these opponents and knowing that you could really be facing anybody?
That's a wild part of the PFL that you don't have in some other organizations. You just don't know what they're going to throw out at you. Both times last season, in the regular season, I had no idea who I was going to be fighting until like 5 or 6 weeks out. So you're basically just training to be the best version of you that you could be. And the name comes like second to it. The matchup comes second. This is a little different than some of the other ways MMA is conducted. You really have to focus mostly on you. If you get too tied up in who you might fight or who they might put you against, you're going to be wrong, and you're going to wind up having wasted time training. So, yeah, PFL, they make it so that the focus is on just do what you got to do. Doesn't matter who they put in front of you. You got to get your hand raised.
Yeah, and you mentioned now, obviously, the PFL, they bring something completely different to the table in terms of a schedule for the fighters who they could be facing. But I believe this will be now your 7th fight at the highest level of MMA in less than 2 years once you take on this fight. How has that sort of been, having this sort of schedule against these tough opponents, and also being able to show that you really do belong at that level as well?
Yeah, it's been a blessing. The format that the PFL adopted, that I was able to jump right into from their first year. I'm a guy that grew up at wrestling. Wrestlers grind, man. We wrestle Wednesday, Friday, all day Saturday, then we practice all week. So I'm used to being in hard training, being in tough competition, maybe having nicks or bruises, and then carrying on and competing again. Something I've always seen in MMA is sometimes it's tough for guys to fight even more than like one time a year. They fight once a year, and it's like they're all banged up. They need a surgery. They have to wait 18 months. With the PFL, you got to be ready, and you got to stay healthy, and you have to make the weight. So the demand that they unintentionally kind of put on us, it makes us better. It makes us look at how many fights I have. I mean, geez, if it weren't for the PFL, I'm over 30 pro fights now, and I think 15 of them are with the PFL. So the volume's great. If you want to make money and have a lot of fights, come to the PFL.
100%. And as well, sort of reflecting back on that last fight, obviously, it's one of the biggest rivalries that we've seen inside of the PFL before, and obviously against two high-level competitors. In terms of looking at what you was able to take away from that and some of the lessons, was there anything that sort of changed your outlook on anything at all with that last fight, or what was the sort of outlook on it coming out of it?
Yeah, I did a lot of self-reflecting, sure. And I did a lot of like X's and O's stuff on like, hey, let's just focus on like where was he getting the better of you on your feet, and also how is he able to stop some of the takedowns he's able to stop these days. So definitely spent time trying to figure him out more and what made him successful for that, especially that second half of the year. But when I look back on it, man, it's just like I can't help but feel like a little jaded, because I truly don't believe he even belonged in the playoffs with that headbutt tie situation. Start the year with Kudo. I don't know how you get a draw, which means tie in any language, when you translate it. And then he gets 3 points for winning, winds up in the playoffs, fights two of the best fights of his life. But the first half of the season, it looked like he couldn't win a playoff fight. So fighting is just a wild thing, man. I got to give him credit. He just he turned into a different person in the second half of the season than he was in the first half of the season. First half of the season, I mean, he was fighting guys that were either new or no really name, and they were giving him hell. He was shooting for takedowns and stuff. Second half of the year, he looked like Muhammad Ali out there. It was wild. But so definitely credit, hats off to him. But it's time to regroup, man. We're back here in the United States. I'm out of London. I get to be home and on this clock. So I'm just focused on doing everything I need to do to take one of these dudes out.
Yeah, and you touched on the demand that comes with the PFL, and so having to fight in the regular season and then in the playoffs. Is there ever sort of a change in motivation or keeping a level-headed in terms of going into it and staying at that 100% focus? Is it hard to remain focused, or now doing it so much, is it something that you've just become accustomed to and you're able to perform it all the time?
I think I'm very good at staying focused, in my personality, but I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I said, I know like it was a big rivalry, but there was too much extra bullshit around that fight. I hated the fact that I did what I needed to do to become the 1 seed in the tournament with 9 points, and he was the 4 seed, and that I had to fly to London to fight him in his own backyard. I hated that, you know, just no other sport does that happen. Uh, you don't have any other official sport where you're like, oh, did you hear the New York Knicks are the 1 seed, but yeah, the LeBron James is really popular. So actually they're gonna have the home game in Los Angeles for the Lakers because they like him and he's popular. Like that's just not how sports work. And the week before that, they were in New York, which is my backyard, you know. So managed to put another like nice chip on my shoulder about trying to figure out how the hell the guy gets a fight in his backyard as the 4 seed. But you know, we'll figure it out this year.
Yeah, and sort of taking a look now at the landscape for this year and your upcoming fight, how do you sort of feel that Bubba Jenkins brings to the table for this fight, and how do you sort of see this playing out a little bit?
Well, last time there was a lot of animosity. He came out literally flying at me. He tried to start the fight with like a running jump and knee. I think he'll be a little more relaxed this time to start. It looks like his hands got better, like his boxing got a little bit better since the last time I fought him. So I expect him to try to like mix his hands in a little bit more, and not force the wrestling. But I do think at the end of the day, he probably thinks he needs to like steal takedowns to win rounds against me. So I'm looking out for him at some point during a round, try to like steal a takedown and hold on and just win a few rounds and do what he usually does. So a little bit more boxing from him, I think, a little less wrestling, but at the end of the day, like still the same Bubba Jenkins.
Yeah, and then the final thing for myself is obviously a lot of the fans in PFL, they'll already know what you're capable of and what you're about. But if there's anyone that doesn't yet know, what is it that they can expect to see from yourself throughout this next PFL season?
Man, from this season, you're gonna see me really hunting for the kill. You're really hunting for choke finishes, for whatever the hell I could come up with in a scramble, an arm, a leg, um, trying to take people out with my kicks. Um, I want to do damage this season. I don't want to just like try to skate through, win. Um, I really want to get in there and I want to get out of there. The longer you're in that cage, man, the more time to get beat up, fatigued, run down during a long season. I want to use my smarts, use my IQ in there, and I want to hurt these dudes and get out of there healthy. That's my goal. Like you said, it's a long season, it's a grind. If we could find an opportunity in 3-4 minutes and get a finish and get out of there, we gotta capitalize on those opportunities. So I think you're gonna see a guy that's more focused on cleaning up the little things and getting finishes, as opposed to just attempts.
100%. Well, that is everything from myself. If you'd like to take a chance to any social media, sponsors, anything like that, obviously just feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Please give me a follow at Chris Wade MMA on Instagram and at C Wade MMA on Twitter. That's my two main handles where I'm most active. So really, really appreciate it. I know I've been saying this lately, like for a lot of us, for a lot of the athletes, man, if you like the athlete, please just give them a follow because a lot of these organizations place their value on the athlete now, on what their social media following is. So it's really important to support the people that you're into.
100%. Well, I really appreciate your time today. Obviously, Bubba Jenkins versus Chris Wade. It's going to be a big fight. You will not want to miss it. I'm sure it's going to be extremely good and a great card as well. But thank you for your time today. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much, Joe. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Thank you.